We French know the truth. The best food in the world is made in France.
Francophilic propaganda is scored by an overture about Russia's victory over the French army. Confused yet? Also, anime narration.
Usually when you send narration, it's a voiceover from behind the fourth wall that explains either the plot or characters. But this is different since we're seeing a news broadcast recapping Gusteau's restaurant. So are literally all forms of narration bad? Like, what is up with this arbitrary hatred of this device?
First of all, I'm a rat, which means life is hard.
That's ratsist.
But also, literally true.
I have a highly developed sense of taste and smell.
But what is it that led to Remy's nose being so good? It can't be his love of food alone. There has to be a genetic reason or explanation, right?
Does it matter? Does the movie's plot hinge on us knowing this information? Or does it work perfectly fine that we just know that Remy's nose works like this?
Turns out that funny smell was rat poison. Suddenly Dad didn't think my talent was useless.
I agree that it was sudden. It was only 30 seconds ago that you were telling me about your talent and your dad not respecting it. Now here we are. And yes, that was fast.
Maybe because these first few minutes are a montage explaining Remy's life before he forces the entire clan of rats to evacuate? I don't know, just a thought.
You think that maybe we shouldn't be so...
Mother Nature goes caviezeling and these rats get blasted off a roof and into the plot-propelling situation.
Despite literally sitting this movie for narration, Jeremy is now narrating the movie himself.
She's gonna wake up.
These guys tasted a thing and then decided it needed only saffron to be perfect. Then realized this lady had saffron, I think. Then decided to steal her saffron so they could experience the perfect bite, and honestly, this convoluted reasoning is flimsier than most Bugs Bunny cartoons.
First of all, why are you saying they? Emile is literally just along for the ride. Remy is the one who wants the saffron for this mushroom. Second of all, you again just narrated what's happened, and I don't see how this reasoning is convoluted.
You read?
Not sure if I should be more shocked at Remy reading or the brother only just now realizing Remy can read. Or even knowing what reading is.
Also, these rats can talk, and later one of them goes on to become a chef that creates food to impress a dadgum food critic. Like, come on, this is where your suspension of disbelief stops.
And the broken-hearted chef died shortly afterwards.
He got his first bad review, then literally died from it. How sensitive was this dude? I've gotten hundreds of thousands of bad reviews, a few dozen hate mails, and 2 separate hand-drawn maps leading me to dangerous locations. But none of them has caused me to die of sadness.
That's because you're already dead on the inside.
Also, seriously? The sight of a couple rats causes Granny to immediately reach for the shotgun? She'd rather destroy her house in a rain of fire than, say, grab a broom?
Now, I'm not saying this is right or anything, but apparently some people actually do this.
If these rats were all living in this woman's attic before now, that was not made clear.
Maybe because it was meant to be a surprise?
So Remy felt his dish needed saffron, and he robbed the old lady's house for it, which caused a chain reaction that led to the entire rat clan being washed away all the way to Paris. And none of that is ever addressed again. The movie wanted to get everyone to Paris and decided to show it to us, but it meant nothing. No one is mad at Remy when they meet up later on. Everyone adjusts fine to Paris. I suppose the old lady was snatched up by the EU's version of Medicaid and was probably lost or killed via negligence. But this whole opening is pretty meaningless.
No, it's not meaningless. It's meant to show Remy being separated from his clan, and then he goes on to become a chef, so then when he reunites with the clan, there's suddenly conflict as he tries to figure out his 2 different halves between being a chef and being a rat. Also, I actually appreciate that no one is upset at Remy for this, since they were more concerned with every rat making it out alive.
How the hell is that book readable after taking that long-ass trip in the storm sewer? My copy of 50 Shades of Grey was ruined after I walked through the rain for 1 block.
Reading 50 Shades of Grey.
You don't have the guts.
Holy shit, did movie just seriously yada yada this confrontation at gunpoint? Is this a regular occurrence in Paris? Man, France is weird.
Taking a joke at face value.
This sequence of the camera following Remy as he explores Paris is awesome. Really worthy of a sin removal. But it makes me wonder how the hell Remy knows exactly where to go at all times without ever stopping to see which way to turn.
Probably because of that incredible nose he has. You know, something you literally questioned near the beginning of this video.
All this time, I've been underneath Paris?
Movie inadvertently writes the most salacious Gilmore Girls fan fiction ever.
Jeremy says something random cliche. Hey, Luke's been saying my arbitrary movie reference catchphrase a lot, so why not?
Also, luckily for Remy and the plot, he emerged directly on a perfect view of the city to confirm his location. I mean, it's better than an obvious title card, but still.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Gusteau's? You've led me to your restaurant!
Lottery odds? I mean, here is a rat that loves Gusteau's cookbooks and suddenly finds himself swept into Paris and right to the doorstep of Gusteau's. And this is so unrealistic the Justice League mustache team sent a congratulatory fruit basket.
Hey, nothing was more unrealistic than that dumb upper lip. I mean, look at that thing.
I was,
My mother?
That's right, kids. We've killed off 2 characters in the first 20 minutes of this movie. Jesus, even Die Hard didn't have this body count so soon.
So I decided to fact check that claim about Die Hard. Turns out Jeremy is wrong. Exactly 2 characters die in the first 20 minutes of that movie. This guy and this guy. More importantly though, we already had this discussion in my last video, but movies being animated doesn't make them for kids. Heck, this movie in particular was directed by Brad Bird, who has been very vocal about this specific topic, saying that animation isn't a genre, it's a medium, and I 100% agree with him, because all 4 of his animated movies have some not so friendly kid stuff that proves this.
You've read my book. Let us see how much you know, huh? Which one is a chef?
This entire scene of Remy identifying all the various kitchen workers, all very important, is purely expositional. Later on, this ghost is going to tell Remy he's not real, and Remy is talking to himself, so he's just proving to himself here how smart he is. But mostly he's letting the audience know.
Talking to yourself isn't that weird. I see it happen all the time. And no, I'm not referring to myself. Wait, why would I say that? I don't talk to myself. Most of the time.
Movie notwithstanding, it takes a kitchen full of employees ignoring an entire station for several minutes in order for this magical plot-propelling soup to even begin to get made in the first place, which is even more damning since Remy pointed out that this was the Saucier's workstation. Where'd the f***ing Saucier go, huh? Extended cigarette break? No, wait, this is France.
Bathroom breaks are apparently non-existent in CinemaSins land.
Also, Linguini grabs this piping hot pot of soup with no ill effects. I guess he does have talent in the kitchen.
Didn't he grab the handles? You know, the stuff that's there for people to pick up pots, especially when they're hot? What, did you think those were there for decoration?
I mean, I could say this at virtually any point in this movie, but how do all these assholes not notice this obvious rat?
You've never been in a rush, have you? I work fast food, and trust me, it's difficult to pay attention when there's like 20 orders to go through.
Man, this scene gets dangerously close to a bad Tom and Jerry episode.
Arbitrary TV reference.
Dude, all Linguini did was add some water, garlic, and leeks to the soup, so why is it immediately nauseating?
No, he didn't. He also added this liquid that even caused fire to combust. And who knows what else Linguini put in there when Remy fell through the window and ran around.
What are you playing at?
I'd like to point out that this guy is basically the primary villain in this movie, but even he just immediately admits and accepts that this soup is rad. And a true asshole would have called it disgusting and refused to ever let Linguini cook again. Instead, this guy knows the soup rules, but he can't accept the fact that Linguini cooked it, because he didn't. This guy gets a bad rap. I'm sending this movie for not making this villain more villainy.
Jeremy left out the scene that showed the soup being given to a food critic, and she liked it. So Skinner tried the soup himself and was just as impressed as the critic. It'd be pretty weird for him to try and deny that it's good. Besides, this dude is already pretty dang evil. He uses Gusteau's face to sell food despite him being dead, and even kept Linguini being the rightful owner of this restaurant a secret just because he wanted to be in charge.
Also, I'm pretty sure a simple security camera would solve almost all this movie's conflict. Saucier would get fired for abandoning his station, and Linguini would keep his job as garbage boy once everyone saw the rat was the one that messed with the soup. Done and done. This is a modern movie, right? And one of the most famous, high-end, expensive restaurants in Paris, but no cameras? Not even to safeguard the expensive wines and other high-end ingredients?
So I've always assumed this movie takes place somewhere before 2007 when it came out, and after some Googling, yeah, it does seem like that's true. It's often believed to be set in the 1960s, and while the movie itself doesn't really say that, some of the technology does look a bit ancient. I bring this up because security cameras didn't start being installed in restaurants until around the 70s to 80s, meaning it is possible for Gusteau's to not have them.
Is this how you keep a restaurant at 4 stars? There's literally only a swinging double door separating you and the customers, and you are screaming.
To be fair, we later see Linguini and Colette shouting at each other, and it didn't seem like anyone in the lobby could hear them. Also, this restaurant is currently at 3 stars, not 4.
Have you been nodding?
Remy can understand English, but he can't speak. And we're all speaking English even though we're in Paris? Movie yada yada's over the solution to the language barrier here so hard that even 6-year-olds came out asking their parents what the was going on.
That's most likely because 6-year-olds don't understand anything, but it's pretty dang obvious to figure out what's going on here. In this movie's world, rats don't speak, or at least not in a way humans can understand them. And since Remy can freaking read, of course he can understand humans. Also, I've always liked the idea that the characters are speaking French, but the movie translates it to English for us Americans.
I can't cook. Can I?
Awesome! So we've immediately undermined the central premise of the movie by determining our secondary protagonist is unable to do what Gusteau says anyone can do.
No, that's not what the message was. Gusteau specifically said anyone can cook. That doesn't mean everyone can. There's a difference there. Not to mention Ego spells out this message at the end of the film.
Hey, they like the soup! Ah! They like the soup.
Linguini fell into the goddamn Seine River, survived it, found the jar that Remy was in, rescued him, and climbed out of the Seine in record time. Why can't we see that story?
Because this is meant to just be a joke. Why are we taking a joke this literally? And people get mad at me for taking CinemaSins too seriously.
This uncoordinated asshat keeps losing jobs and can't do anything and has no money and lives in this tiny cramped apartment, and you expect me to believe he takes up valuable kitchen shelf space with a goddamn soccer ball?
Yes.
Recreate the soup. Take as much time as you need. All week if you must.
Couldn't Skinner just demand the recipe? Or if he wanted to keep Linguini honest, wouldn't he just stand here and watch him make it?
I mean, Skinner did literally say that he'd be paying close attention to him when he told him to recreate the soup the first time, so this means he is watching him. He also told him to take as much time as he needs, so I doubt Skinner would be watching all the time. He's a chef, so he'd have other things to do as well.
This is not gonna work, little chef! I'm gonna lose it if we do this anymore.
No one overhears Linguini screaming at the top of his lungs about the rat he brought into the restaurant. And before you say that he's in the walk-in and it would be soundproof, I'll remind you that Jack Torrance was able to easily communicate with multiple people outside of it in The Shining.
Okay, thanks for bringing up The Shining as a defense for your point. Like, how does a completely different movie help your case here? This is like if I said small spaceships in Lilo and Stitch shouldn't have hyperdrive because Star Wars has that rule. Wait, Jeremy actually did that?
I'm just familiarizing myself with vegetables.
One can get too familiar with vegetables, you know.
This is actually a pretty good adult joke, subtly thrown into a kid's movie. But it also means that at some point, Skinner definitely stuck a cucumber up his ass.
Jeremy sends something. He likes cliche.
The whole rest of the movie kind of hinges on this, but this is some bullshit. If something suddenly pulled 2 strands of your hair, the last thing you would do is raise both arms in unison with said hair strands.
I agree. This wouldn't be possible in real life. But this movie isn't real life, is it? For the 100th time, it's an animated movie that already has a lot of unrealistic things about it. It's not meant to be grounded in reality. This ain't The Dark Knight.
This takes so long to learn, I'm surprised it's not snowing outside already.
How do you know how long it took? This movie doesn't give you any indication how much time has passed, so you're just inventing a problem with the movie out of thin air. Which I guess is something you always do.
Congratulations. You were able to repeat your accidental success.
This is verbatim what my college girlfriend said to me after our second time having sex.
Cringe.
Gusteau makes Chinese food. Chinese.
I haven't seen marketing this blatantly racist since H&M's last campaign.
Didn't you literally send this movie because Skinner wasn't villainy enough? Now you're sending him for being racist, which I think we can all agree is an evil thing. I mean, it's why so many anti-woke videos on YouTube aren't fun to watch.
Also, I never understood this. Just because he became head chef at this restaurant, and even if he owns the restaurant, how did Gusteau dying transfer the Gusteau likeness rights to this
If we're assuming this movie takes place in the 60s, then that makes perfect sense. This kind of rule wasn't established yet, or at least not as widespread as it is now.
Tell them Chef Linguini has prepared something special for them. Something definitely off menu.
I mean, I know Skinner's trying to get Linguini in trouble, but he's throwing the entire restaurant under the bus to do it, and why would he want him out anyway? His lawyer just told him it's better to keep an eye on him while he's on the staff.
Again, didn't you send a movie for this guy not being villainy enough? If he's willing to throw away Gusteau's reputation for a little bit just to get rid of Linguini, then yeah. Besides, he's afraid Linguini could still take over the restaurant if he actually is Gusteau's son, so he sees it as the perfect opportunity to dispose of him.
Remy, you are stealing?
He's just now stealing. What about all that Linguini gave him for dinner?
Jeremy thinks that someone being given food is the receiver of said food, stealing. I'm just gonna let that speak for itself.
I am deeply and truly offended by these musical instruments.
I suppose these rats being just as intelligent as humans is something that's true in the real world, isn't it?
What kind of shop would advertise their rat traps with actual dead rats hanging in the window? Is this an effective strategy? Like, do customers walk by and say, well, I was just gonna let those fellas live, but I guess if those traps are that good, I've gotta buy one.
Actually, this is a real place in Paris.
Also, is this really an entire store that's dedicated to killing rats?
Since we've established this business is real, here's what their specialty is, and I quote, originally founded in 1872, the shop itself has always specialized in pest control, or more specifically, as rat killers.
This works even while he's sleeping?
Yeah, sure. You admitted this whole thing isn't realistic in the real world anyway, so why wouldn't this feature that this movie made up have this ability?
Wake up. Wake up!
Even in a movie about an English-understanding, Michelin star-worthy rat chef in Paris, this Linguini doesn't wake up crap is asking too much of my suspension of disbelief.
This, coming from the guy who's been questioning a lot of weird stuff about this cartoony world in this very video.
He's up here.
In your brain.
Yeah, why is it so hard to talk to you?
You don't have to talk at all. If you're that committed to telling Colette the truth, just take off your f***ing hat.
Which he almost does.
Awesome. Glad to see this badass female chef eventually fall for a forced kiss. Seriously, movie, you could have left this love story out with no difference to the overall movie.
Sure, whatever. But you're literally showing a scene where Linguini attempts to take the hat off, immediately discrediting the last sin.
I realize you have a little coffin imagery going on, and that's fun, but who would build a room like this? There's nothing on any of these sidewalls but sound-reducing panels, and there's no functional reason for the size or shape of this office, which suggests the character just loved coffins and wanted a coffin office, and that takes the fun out of the imagery, much like the way I take the fun out of movies.
Now, at least you're self-aware about it.
Hey, Remy. How you doing?
The entire movie has been telling us that the Rat Clan doesn't give a shit about what they eat, and that Remy was the only outlier. So why would there be a big demand from the other rats about trying Remy's food?
But Remy showed Emile what it's like eating real food, and while Emile didn't entirely understand it, he did show enough interest in it, so it makes sense that he'd tell the other rats about it, since it tastes way better than the garbage they've been eating.
If Chef Fancy Pants had any ideas, you think I'd be hacking barbecue over here? Or microwave burritos? Yeah, or toothpick and chicken?
You know, 15% of this movie is Remy talking to figments of his imagination.
And that's a problem. Why?
Why would Linguini be filed with your will?
This used to be my office.
Classic not answering the question.
That doesn't make sense, though. You know the Gusteau in this scene isn't real, right? Since Remy's imagining him? So why would he know why Linguini is in his will, let alone that he's his son? Heck, the movie itself makes that very point.
He's your son?
I have a son?
How could you not know this?
I am a figment of your imagination. You did not know, how could I?
Well,
You know, when you get down to it, Ratatouille is just an expanded episode of those Are You the Dad episodes on Maury.
Arbitrary TV reference.
But why not just stay on the roof? There's no way for Skinner to get up there. And this is a boat. There's really nowhere to go.
But he still needs to get these papers to Linguini so he can take over Gusteau's, as it is his right to do so.
I know this is an interesting story, but is the ownership of a local restaurant really dominating front page news? How about promoting the dock worker strike? That seems important.
What about the fact that Gusteau has a son and no one knew about it for the longest time? Like, do you know how obsessed the media gets about celebrities? Practically everything they say or do is news, even if it's trivial.
Why the hell wouldn't Remy just ask Linguini for the food for his family? He's the f***ing owner now, right? They could supply the whole clan for very little overhead.
Maybe because Remy doesn't want to feed these guys?
I will return tomorrow night with high expectations.
Why'd you give Linguini the heads up? Isn't the whole thing with food critics that they sneak up on you? I thought they even wore disguises and
I imagine he also wanted to tell the press that, given how much his last review of the restaurant caused it to lose a star. This would be pretty big news that this critic would want to eat at this place again, despite previously not liking it.
You're stealing food? What? How could you? I thought you were my friend.
Jeez, how many times do we have to see the characters fight over a contrived reason before the movie's climax cliche?
I mean, I agree for the most part. I'm really sick of this trope in animated movies because so many of them do it. But in this case, the reasoning is well established, not contrived like you said. These two have been friends for a long time. Remy hasn't acted like a food. Okay. These two have been friends for a long time. Remy hasn't acted like a rat by stealing food, at least not in front of Linguini. So for Linguini to see it happen here is heartbreaking, especially since this is the night before Ego will come and judge him.
Tell him to hit me with his best shot.
Never a good look for a critic to set his opinion prior to experiencing the thing he's here to critique.
Jeremy just called out the critical drinker and other grifters like him. And that made me happy.
How does this get solved if the car isn't conveniently parked under several freestanding gargoyles? I realize France has a lot of gargoyles, compared to America at least. But goddamn, are they everywhere?
No, you just said it. France has a lot of gargoyles.
In many ways, the work of a critic is easy.
Damn, this is our third narrator in this movie.
How is a review narration? This makes even less sense for the definition in the second sin of this video.
We thrive on negative criticism, which is fun to write and to read.
Dude just unknowingly wrote our mission statement.
Which deserves a sin off, right?
Well, we had to let Skinner and the health inspector loose.
And somehow never encountered any legal or ethical issues for abusing and imprisoning them. Ha ha ha, what a ripping good yarn that abduction story is. Ha ha ha.
But did they then get Gusteau's clothes because of that? It's literally said in the movie.